What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the #1 game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and with me, a special guest, Veronica Orvalho. There we go.
Nice to be here.
All right. So, Veronica, this is the part of the podcast where I ask our guests, which is yourself, to introduce yourself to the listener and the viewers out there of where you've been, where you're at, where you're heading.
Okay, so first, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today. So my name is Veronica. I'm the founder of Didimo. I'm currently speaking to you all from Porto in Portugal, in a tiny fisherman town where we make some magic and develop some awesome technology for gaming. So yeah, that's where we are today.
Perfect. Speaking of which, why don't you kind of talk more about Didimo? So we're in the age of, I think, the last couple of years, there's like this huge influence progression with AI tools, or primarily tools that make game development easier and faster, right? We're always been on that path. Didimo sounds like it's along that way, but progressing it even further than ever before. Do you mind talking about what is Didimo? And what are the specific problems you guys are trying to solve in the game industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll probably chat about a little bit about myself, but it's a long-lasting problem what I detected about 2 decades ago while I was doing my PhD on computer graphics. And that big problem was, how can we create automatically digital characters in a manner that will retain the art style and the specifications defined by the artists, and still, automate that tedious process that is, creating a ton of characters at scale. So we pretty much solve that problem. We can we build a end-to-end production pipeline where we can have artists define the art style they want from their game, for their characters to be in a game. How do they want the mesh, the rig to be? And you input that into our software, and we can automatically output unlimited variations of digital characters with unlimited number of assets, and ingest them directly into the game engine. So yeah. We pretty much, I believe we created a full production pipeline to solve character creation at scale. So game studios don't need to reinvent the wheel over and over on building a character editor. So yeah, we can deep dive. You can ask me tons of questions, and I'll walk you through every single thing we developed.
Yeah, so what are the what are the primary games type of studios that are kind of using Didimo, or at least initially interested in this technology?
Yeah. So we like about 2 years ago, we started testing the idea and talking to game, RPG type of games, MMOs, simulators, to understand if they actually wanted to use third party, full engine to be part of such a critical process within a game, which is, pretty much the character pipeline. And we got, very good feedback, because usually games, get into this crunch mode, and they would say that if we can give them a tool where they can still control the art style and the specifications of their characters, so pretty much there was no friction to integrate within their current character pipeline, they will for sure use it. And so we had City Skyline with Colossal Order being like the first game studio that said, yeah, we need that. Can we do it? And in less than 2 months, we built the whole initial version of the product based on all the IP and all the tech that we have developed in the past. So primarily, I would say simulators, RPGs, MMOs, and any game, strategy games, or even first-person shooters, any game that requires a lot of characters and a lot of variations. So what we really wanted to bring was the ability of people to see a game where the content is diverse. So you don't have the same 10, 20, 50 characters that the only thing that you're doing is just changing a little bit, the skin color and a few of the garments. So we literally can build unlimited of unique characters to populate any type of game. So yeah, any game that requires a lot of character variation would be a target.
So I'm a little bit interested in the Inception of Didimo, right? If we go back in time a bit, so you came up with a thesis, an idea for a business, right? How did you go from a single idea to growing a team to eventually having like a major deal with a game company to really get things going? And it sounds like the progress that you've made in a short amount of time is really impressive. If you don't mind diving into that kind of like background of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say two words: grit and passion.
Yeah.
So without those two things, you'd never get into this very, crazy idea of first building a company, second trying to solve a long-lasting problem that many studios every year they build character editors, right?
Yeah.
So why would someone want to like generate an automatic pipeline to solve it? So the genesis actually starts like 2 decades ago when I was doing my PhD, and I spent about a year and a half talking to game studios and asking them what problems were difficult to do, hard to solve. And they mentioned that character creation was one of those big problems. So I then went back and said, okay, what was difficult about building characters? And I couldn't find a direct answer. They say, everything is difficult. And by everything is, from modeling the 3D character to setting up the textures, to setting up the rig, defining an animation system. And let's remember that 2 decades ago, we don't have the technology that we have today, or not even the computational power that we have today. So, but one thing was the key, the biggest learning. And that was that when you want to automate a system, you want to automate almost everything except the creative aspect that makes a game aesthetics unique. So what I learned, those two decades ago was the artists need to maintain the full control of how they want those characters to look like. And they also want to own and have full control of how they want the specifications of those characters to be. So 2 decades later, when we built Didimo, that still resonated to me. And I said, okay, we're going to build a software where we're going to allow the game studios to continue having full control of how they want those characters to be. And we're just going to automate the most tedious pieces, and we're going to allow them to build unique characters based on their specifications. So that was a bit of the genesis, and that kept faithful to today. And I think that's what makes the software, when we talk to companies, that resonates with them, and they want to use it because they can still own the key element, which is how the characters are going to look at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that's where we nail it down, and that's why we got so fast adoption once we started presenting the idea of what we wanted to build.
Yeah, I mean, character development has always been, it's an interesting discipline because they're very so much. I come from environment, and so we're kind of like the opposite in terms of we get like a small size on the disk, or in this case, just on the hard drive. And they have like twice as much, right? And, the world is usually bigger than characters. However, characters have like what we feel infinite time to kind of really tailor it perfectly because it's so close to the camera. That and weapons. So like it's always been like a challenge how much time they have, how much work they have. And usually those teams are small, way smaller than environment teams. So it's interesting kind of see like the evolution of like how character pipelines have finally started to change. I feel like in the last 3-4 years, it's always been one artist in a room for X amount of months. And then, just really linear pathway of kind of creating things.
Yeah.
I do want to kind of dig into staying true to your original idea of fixing this issue. Like, was it like were you able to kind of organize a team? Was it bootstrap, or was this some kind of R&D funding from the government? Like, how did you get the
Yeah.
amount that you needed to kind of really kind of test your thesis and build a product essentially?
Oh, that's an excellent question. It was really difficult in the sense that I've done my master's degrees in video games. I've been playing games since I am extremely little. I programmed my own games when I was young. So I always wanted to do video games. And when I got the opportunity to build Didimo, which was in 2016, I suddenly, got kind of like bombarded and said, "Oh, the technology you're building can go above and beyond gaming. So you should look into all other industries." So we were still building the technology because I had a research lab for 10 years. And so we transferred the know-how to the company, and we were building the tech, and we work with companies like the Amazons and Sony to build the tech. And we were focusing in different industries. It wasn't just gaming. And then in 2000 and end of 2022, I make this bold decision, which is, gosh, I'm just going to go back to what I know best, which is gaming. The gaming industry is humongous. It's bigger than film and music altogether. So let's just focus on the industry. I know it has a huge problem still today, and let's just build it. So we closed down all the other verticals. Well, no, we closed them. We kind of like put them on hold. And I refocused the whole team just to build up this product, which is Populate. And I said, we're just going to nail down, we're going to build a software that can create infinite characters with the needs of the game industry. And we got with Colossal Order, and with them, we understood exactly how they wanted the problem to be solved. And in 2 months, we just built the first prototype. In order to get there, we managed to do it because I already had a team of about 25 people, extremely experts in computer vision, computer graphics, coming from the gaming industry. So like top-notch, team, and that have been building all the technology that we have today, where we own every single line of code. We build our own data sets. We bought some 3D models that we needed. So we also invested a lot in making sure that we own every single piece of code. So because I knew that when we will go work with big game studios, that was one of the first things they were going to ask, right? Is can we use your code freely in the sense that they're not external dependencies? Are we okay of using your data sets? And because maybe they didn't want to people to scrap the internet. So we make sure that we had all the key ingredients. And for that, we could not do it with just bootstrapping. So we did had a total of, as of today, we raised a total of 17 million euros. And we had part of it comes from European grants as well, about 2 million from European grants. So we're very well funded, and we're a deep tech company. And because of that funding, we have enough room to innovate and build, R&D, and then convert it into a product after validating which were the market needs. So pretty much, I guess I would say it took us roughly 6 years to build all the core fundamental tech, and then less than a year, to build and launch the tech with a game in the market, which is huge, right?
Huge, yeah.
So, yes, yeah. But success doesn't come from one day to the other. It's tons of years of research and having a lot of grit on understanding that idea I had 2 decades ago was still a problem today, and it was worth solving it. So.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a problem that studios will always have, just by the basis that your product was immediately received by studios as soon as it was ready for consumption, right? So I would love to kind of, so like there's this mystery for most game developers, most startup founders, most people that are looking to kind of create their own IP. Like from that angle, the funding stage is still a big mystery for at least those who haven't been a part of that process. So just to kind of, as a basis understanding, like what was that initial step of, all right, we're going to go ask for funding, to finally when paycheck in the bank, we're ready to go? Like how long was that process? And what was the challenges of that process that you guys have to go back to the table to readjust your pitch essentially?
It's still a mystery for me. So I'm just trying to see how can I unpack that very important and complex question that you ask. I I think I'm really fortunate. Like my mom used to say, I have this really shiny star that follows me. And I am just honestly try to be always very true to my values and try to stay focused on what I believe can take you to greatness. And then be actionable, like have the actions, right? So you have your values, you have a focus, and then you take action in what you say you want to do. I think that's the first thing. So okay, we had 10 years of research funding from the EU to my lab. So during 10 years, we've been developing tech, and innovating in the different areas of the character creation pipeline. So a character creation pipeline, I'm very sure everyone listening the channel knows, but pretty much you gotta automate how you build the 3D model, how you create the rig, how you create all the textures for that 3D model, how you build a complete animation retargeting system, how can you plug in motion capture into the characters, how can you then build all the shading and rendering system to animate on screen. So that's a lot, right? It's just automating all that is very complex. So the initial funding came from the EU into my research lab. And end of 2015, I decided I just either wanted to reduce my research lab or focus on other areas because I was just being a bit tired of doing a lot of innovation, and then the innovation would stay at the university, will never make it into the industry. So I was a bit frustrated, and I presented at an event, and then suddenly someone from the Portuguese government said, "Hey, Veronica, an investor is asking to invest in very early stage technology. Can I give you your contact?" And I was like, "Sure." So I got a contact from an investor, and he said that he wanted to invest in what I was developing. And I said, "This is a research lab. This is just tech. There's like no business plan, no business, nothing, right?" And he said, "There's something very important what you have. I'm sure you're gonna. This is really worth doing." So in less than 3 weeks, I said, "Okay, there's one place we gotta go test this idea," and I said, "It's a game developers conference." And I suggested to look for a meeting, and back then I looked for this meeting, which was with Amazon. So it took me probably 3 weeks to get a meeting with the general manager of back then Amazon Lumberyard. So that was in January 2016, and I think this is really important for those listening because in January 2016, Amazon had just acquired the Cry engine, a license for the Cry engine, and they were building Lumberyard. At the same time, you had Unity and Unreal, right? So, but if I wanted to validate in a very short period of time if what I had was valuable, it would have taken me too long to reach out to anyone at Unity and Unreal. So I thought, okay, let's reach out to someone at Amazon. So it took me about 5 contacts, like reaching out to 5 different people. And then I got the meeting with the right person at Amazon. I flew to San Francisco just for that meeting. And I got this amazing meeting with the team at Amazon that, said that what I showed them about automatic character creation was probably the best thing in show that they've seen. And so we created a plugin for them. Simultaneously, same trip, like 2 days in, my first investor said, "Hey, Veronica, well, how about, are we ready to invest?" And I was like, "No, I don't know. I don't know if we have a business model for this." And he suggested we apply to Techstars, which is an accelerator program, kind of like Y Combinator. Like, Y Combinator, Techstars for me are kind of like the
Mhm.
best, accelerators out there. So we wrote that night really early. We just wrote the whole application. And long story short, we passed every single interview with Techstars. And before I realized, I was living in London for 4 months at Techstars to apply, to attend Techstars in London, which built me in a very concentrated way, gave me everything to get started onto how you build a business. So I'm, kind of like eternally grateful, because between Techstars and the first investor, we actually launched Didimo. I don't think you think too much, or I didn't, at least, of all the challenges and problems and complications that you might have. I was just all in because I wanted to solve this very difficult problem that was on my mind for, back then, like about 15 years already, or 10 years, or 12 years, I don't know. I just wanted to solve it and show the world that it was meaningful. So that's how we actually got started.
Mhm.
And the rest, it got harder and harder, but I'm happy to deep dive on it. But yeah, it's really fortunate on how I got started, really. Um,
That period during TechStart, that incubator program in London. So I'm assuming you're around other founders. Like, how big was that group, your group, during those 4 months? And if you don't
yeah.
mind, kind of like sharing, what are the biggest takeaways from those
Oh,
4 months that
absolutely.
really helped kind of push or organize your thoughts into a
Absolutely.
business plan or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was fundamental. It's the managing director was Max, and oh my God, is nicest person. Like, they're all in for the well-being of the founders, and for giving you kind of like a customized program for what you need in order to build your business, because every business is different. So I think it was between probably around 1,500 applications, and they selected 11 companies. In my case, I feel really fortunate because they usually accept companies with a team, and I was a solo founder. So I had a team at the university, but I needed to create a different team in order to build a company. So they gave me like lots of know-how in terms of, okay, how do you pitch your business, how you build a financial model, what is sales, marketing, everything that is non-tech, because I am very tech focused. So everything that was related with tech, I had no problems. And then the most important thing is they do something that is called the mentor madness. So in 2 weeks you meet 100 mentors, and these
Mm.
these are like super top people, mostly from the UK ecosystem in this case, where you meet investors, VPs of senior companies, like coming from Disney or NBC or BBC. I mean, so it's whoever you need it. And then the biggest asset is that they have a huge network. So if you say, look, I need to do some market research within, the game industry, and they will immediately put you in contact with the right person that can assist you in order to do that. Or I need to understand how should I build pricing. They will again put you in contact. And the beauty is that now, 8 years after we've done the Techstars, the accelerator program, they also reinvested the second time when we did our Series A, and they're one phone call away. So it's just magical. Anything you need, suddenly you have a huge network of extremely experienced people on any topic that you can think of that can assist you at any point in time, either for the good, for the bad, for anything, right? So, because I mean, building a company can be extremely emotionally heavy. So you need to be with people that either have went through the same thing, or people that can help you go through those hard moments. Usually hard moments are always related with people. So
Mm.
it's really good to get that emotional support all the time. I mean, there in many cases they've been present still today, so many years later. So yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. The other thing is you have to be all in to build a company. And you have to be all in plus plus if you're going to do Techstars, because that means you arrive at 7:30 a.m. and you're still at the accelerator or working on your business at midnight. For me, it meant I have two kids, so meant moving with my whole family to London, getting a babysitter, from 7 a.m. to midnight or 1 a.m. To make sure that I could be fully focused. So it's a very important personal and family decision. You need to have a lot of support from your like inner circle. To be able to make it through successfully. You cannot do it alone, really.
I think that's a super important aspect, for sure. I think I kind of envy because I started my company a lot later in life with a family, versus when I see people single, ready to go, no kids.
I feel the same. I do feel the same.
Yeah, because there's so much you got to make up for, to kind of compete, right? To be, even if it's a friendly competition, you can't help but compare, right?
Yep.
In terms of just time and resource. So, like that ability to kind of, go from your house, focusing on the business, and then free from the distractions, even though it's good distractions. However, it's at times feels like you have to kind of duplicate yourself, to kind of maintain the sanity of it all. So I think that's one of the things I kind of want to transition into, because there's a lot of, in game development, especially for people who start their own studio, but after many years of service, right, in the company, that they've been at, like mostly AAA, right, there is a definite value towards like high caliber candidates for funding their project, their passion project, but there's a really low percentage that actually makes it successful, right? So there's a high percentage of a lot of veterans that do this later in their life, but like you said, I don't quite feel that they have the grit and the all in, because standing out on your own versus having that security of a bigger company.
Yeah.
And with the family aspect and the being used to a high salary with no risks, right, stable income, that the challenges of finding a company later in life is so difficult, because you're constantly being pulled as like, why am I doing this? Like, I have it so much easier. And I think unfortunately that contributes to a lot of potentially great concepts not really making it all the way through. And I'm sure you kind of see this.
Absolutely.
I would love to kind of hear your opinion if you're kind of seeing that, knowing that you went through kind of hellish personal experience just managing everything, finding a company, and then seeing like what you see in the game development, where routinely we're seeing studio founders kind of dissolving 2 years later. I mean, I would like to kind of, as an example, Devolver Digital, right? That's a famous one that recently closed. They had full funding from the start from PlayStation. 2 years in, before any, or is it Devolver Deviant? I think it's Deviant. One of those. I forget the name. It starts with a D. It's they had full funding from Sony. 2 years later, before even announcing, their studio closed down, and they were like 100+ people, right? I would love to kind of hear your thoughts and opinions on that, just based on your experience as well.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of things also to unpack here. So first one is, I go back. I know I've said it a couple of times already in the call, but you gotta have grit and passion, and really want to do it, and really believe that what you're doing is different, is unique, and there's a target audience that will consume it, And in our case, we solve a problem. If you're building a game, it's a bit different, right? But in our case, we got to solve a real problem. So once you have that and you nailed it, you can just feel the momentum. So that gives you the spike to continue and taking it from the next stage. So I think it's really important to have that clear vision and break it down into different kind of, like, imagine like climbing, a mountain,
Yeah.
Kilimanjaro, which, by the way, I'm climbing in June. So you
Oh
just
man.
yeah, we can chat about it if you want. So you just break it down in different camps, and because they are going to keep you sane, and you're going to see milestones, small achievements happening. Okay. So on one side is just keeping you sane. The other thing that not many people talk about is to always be financially responsible.
Mhm.
Right? So you say they hire 100 people and then they have to shut down the studio. So for the 8 years we've been having Didimo, we never had to do, and I touching wood everywhere,
Uh-huh.
like we never had to do not even one layoff.
Yeah.
Um, even during the COVID period. So I think it's really important to be extremely financially responsible. And in our case, we have financial plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whichever you can think of, depending on what's happening in the market, what's happening with our own approach, what's happening with customers, what's happening with hiring. So I think being financially responsible is really, really important, and be constantly modeling it out in terms of, okay, am I getting to my next milestone? If I don't get to the next milestone, what do I need to change in order to continue being financially responsible moving forward, and always making sure that you have money in the bank. So I think is that combination, right? Is the passion, the grit, the taking, breaking down those milestones, or having a very clear, top of the summit, breaking down in milestones, and then being financially responsible, that to get to those milestones in a healthy way, financially healthy way. Yeah, that's how we try to do it.
Was this based on instincts? How were you able to kind of arrive these? Because you're saying this is your first time, but it sounds like you've had many years of experience. Was it the accelerator program, just being around the network of people, just sharing their experiences? Because a lot of us game developers usually learn through failure first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would, even though I'm a professor at the university, I do consider myself like a lifelong learner, and I feel I'm always the most ignorant person in the room. So that feeling of being ignorant takes me to ask questions all the time. And from the get go, I think I have a really good advisory board, and I try to find people that can complement my knowledge. And I'm all the time asking, would you do this better? How would you do this? Would you do that? So I'm all the time very curious and asking others that have done it, others that have failed, on their experience. And then, yeah, I guess it's a lot about gut feeling and instinct. But the way I define gut feeling or instinct is being aware of your surroundings. And what I mean about that is being able to read data, right? All around you. And then paying attention. And then suddenly you start making the right connections between those what it looks to be disconnected moments, and so then you can make a decision. And our brain is full of these disconnected elements that then we can actually start making sense out of them, and that's what instinct and gut feeling end up being. um, I do have, again, I rely a lot on our advisory board and the people that I made, and I'm very fortunate to have won many awards, and some of those awards means being part of different ecosystems like Techstars. I got the Winning Women program with EY. I did the Google for entrepreneurs, like, in San Francisco, and all these networks. You learn, right? And you listen to how others have done it, and then you just try to make the best decisions, and then you learn from your thousands of mistakes that they happen every day. The other thing that helped me a lot is from very early on. I got the advice that says, Veronica, is building a company and you're a solo founder is such an alone thing, and you cannot do it alone. So I got a business coach, and that I had two. One first in the first period of time, and now I have another one. And they keep you, how do you say, in check, and they also keep you mentally healthy, and they make you the tough questions to try to build in a better self, in a better leader, and you start gaining more confidence, and slowly, hopefully you start making better decisions, and then keeping a very open channel with all the team. I think, I mean, that's still my way. um it works for
Yeah.
me, but it might be different from someone else, so
Well, let me speak on behalf of like most game developers. I myself, I think a lot of game developers that you come across are either self-taught or went to like a trade school, art school, right? And very few have gone through the university track, right? A full master's track. But every time I do meet people like yourself, you guys seem so much more prepared for all facets of game development, right? Not just working in there, but to manager roles, to studio founders. I do see like a small percentage that takes the traditional route of education. Are I can't think of any other way, but actually had practice in under the school guidelines to kind of be more prepared for things that most game developers aren't. Like, I think the most common thing with game developers that you find is like most who are kind of promoted in manager role are not good managers because they're used to the crafting. And this kind of leads into my next question, but the people managing has always been and will be a challenge, from working at another company to finding your own company, right? And it's never the really the product or the original idea. It's just constantly the variables are the people, right?
absolutely.
So I would love to kind of dig into that. You don't have to name names, but like kind of lay out like the challenges of the beginning now, or future, like just people. And you mentioned about being surrounded by the right ones to kind of achieve your goals.
Yeah.
What process did you go through to reach that conclusion?
Yeah, I tend to be good at finding nice human beings, and I think I've shared this already with so many people that I don't mind sharing it with it. I don't know how many thousands of people would be here. Anyways, hopefully it help others. So about maybe probably 10 years ago, I decided to cut off all the toxic people in my life.
Mm.
Absolutely all of them. Not going to explain why, a very personal thing. But what happened next is what's interesting. So decided to stop talking to every single person that was toxic. Some relationships I stopped them better than others, until a really good friend of mine said, "Hey, Veronica, if they're not calling you back, just don't worry about it. They probably didn't care about you anyways." Because I was very concerned about not letting know those people that I wasn't going to be talking to them any longer. So then I went from an extremely high social life to no social life whatsoever, because you're alone. I mean, suddenly your circle becomes like very, very, very tiny.
Right.
Okay. But then some magic happens. The very few people that you start getting to know, they're just nice, because you don't want to be with toxic people any longer, right? So you're with nice people. And it's very basic. Nice people just bring you nice people. And so suddenly your environment becomes very healthy.
Mhm.
And it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And now, 10 years later, I just love the people I am with. And you become better at not letting people that do not fit your values close to you, That doesn't mean that you don't talk to them. You just talk to whoever you want, but you just understand where you're putting the limits. And that became my way of being, and coupled with a lot of personal work, with the different coaches that I had, to understand which are my core values and which are different from everyone. But then when we do the hiring or I bring someone to the team, the only thing I look in the interview is, do they have this core value, which in my case is authenticity, and caring for others. I do look for those. If they do, then I know that they can join my team. They will bring other unique values that they have. But I know that it will be a good place, because everyone within, in this case, Didimo, at least will share one or two core values. And then they bring their uniqueness. And that's what makes it, so interesting having teams. I'm sharing the good part, right?
Mhm.
Of course, I make mistakes. Of course, not every person that you bring in end up being a culture fit for many reasons, but in the most cases, it does. And then the team itself self protects. If someone comes in that doesn't really fit, then it automatically self protects from that.
Mm.
So it took many, many years to build this kind of like machine, right? Of having good people working with good people, and good can mean different things in different organizations. So you just need to be able to discover which ones are the ones for you, because at the end of the day, if you're leading a team, it's your values that are amplified by your surrounding. And it took me many years to figure that out. Even when I had my research lab, I struggled a lot for a decade that I had a research lab. I struggled a lot. And I guess those 10 years taught me how I could do things differently when I built Didimo. So, it was 10 years of learning, plus the fact that I've been teaching for 2 decades.
Mhm.
So being in a classroom teaching and being faced with over 150 students every year, that also kind of gives you tools and techniques that you gotta uh, develop them for survival, if in the worst scenario, right? So yeah, I guess in summary is having the courage to figure out who you are, which are your values, and how you can find those values in the people that you want that joins your team, and how you make them shine at the end of the day. How can you make the people around you be better and find their own path, even after they leave Didimo, right? One of the questions I love asking, that I learned from the former head of HR at LinkedIn. He said something that I thought it was brilliant. When you do an interview, ask the person, what do they want to do after they leave your company? Because if you care about what they want to do after they leave your company, that means that you want to build a long-lasting relationship, no matter what they do when they're with you. And I thought that was brilliant, and it fitted perfectly the way I wanted to lead Didimo. So yeah, I guess yeah, people is challenging, but it's a beauty when you find the right ones. Yeah.
That is actually a very great way to ask that question, because the traditional way of asking that question is like, oh, what's your 5-year plan in the company, right? And it's never honest. It's like, I'm not gonna be here. So why does it matter? Are you gonna be here? That's usually how I throw it back. But to ask what you're gonna do after, it makes it very honest about, we're a part of your progression, right? Let us be a part of your journey instead of dominating your journey. It's like, hey, but that's a fantastic thing. I'm probably going to steal from now on. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I'm kind of personally going through that similar journey of like realizing last year about the toxic people in my life, and in that editing process right now, because the crazy thing is it doesn't happen automatically. I mean, it really unfortunately happens after a crisis, and you kind of look
Yes.
around and you're like, who's actually calling me and checking up on me? And I was actually very surprised as recently as last year to find these people I haven't talked to for 5-10 years, or somehow found my number, heard the news through the grapevine and reached out. While in my case, maybe shockingly, not shockingly, a lot of it was just family, right? That kind of takes things for granted, in my opinion, because it's kind of nihilistic or sad to kind of say it this way, but someone kind of mentioned to me while I was going through that period, it's like, family can be great, but also can be friends that you didn't choose,
Yep.
right? And I was very shocked about realizing that. And probably that's when everybody realizes it around that age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, starting that process and starting to put more resource into the relationship that seemed to be genuinely about supporting and making you better. I'm feeling the positivity as kind of like a strong foundation to get to the next stage where I want to be. Right. So it's interesting kind of hearing that from you, sharing that, that I think a lot of people are kind of going in a very similar journey. Could be part of the quarter life crisis. It seems like everyone kind of hits that point where it's very interesting. Yeah. But like, the people aspect, I think, is the largest piece of the pie when it comes to creating a common goal, a company, to see it through. And I would love to kind of talk more about, the next stage. So going back to how you were able to kind of talk to Amazon, realizing, out of the big three, Lumberyard is in its infancy, right? And was more willing, more open to innovations, right? That is some great intuitivity to kind of see that. And then did you feel things accelerated after that first deal? It got easier because you have a major brand using your product?
Well, I guess there's always different things at different moment, right? And you gotta find and pick the battle. And then, as another angel investor said to me, Veronica, when they first invested on our seed round, they said, Veronica, you're brilliant. You know what you're doing. You have ton of potentials, but never underestimate that having luck is also important. So you look for your luck. You got to be aware and pay attention. So I'm going to tell another story. So we go to Amazon. A year after, I was invited to be at the booth of Amazon at GDC. And that was huge, right? So they invited us there as partners. And on one of these, so I went alone because I didn't have any money really. So imagine alone building a company. You have to be crazy, have ton of courage and no fear. Okay. At this point, you're like, I have no fear. I know it's gonna work. Somehow it's gonna work. If you're building a company, you gotta feel every single day that it is gonna work. So you gotta be optimistic and no fear all the time. So at least that's how I am. So I was at the booth of Amazon, and I cannot remember if it was Wednesday, exposition day. It was already like, imagine 5 to 6. You're like exhausted of being there for 3 days already. And at 5 to 6, two people come in to the booth and they ask me my name and they say, what are you doing? Or what do you do? And I was so tired, so tired. And I was like, look, I'm not going to tell you what I do. I'm just going to tell you why I do it. And I said, in 5 years, everyone is going to have our tech in the mobile devices. So back then we were just doing 3D character reconstruction. Okay. So I said, everyone is going to have a digital human on their mobile devices. And for my luck, they turned around their badge and they said, I'm the head of Sony Mobile. And it's not going to be in 5 years, it's going to be in 3 years or less. I want you guys to talk to us. And I was like, oh my God. And so they like send me the NDA. Next thing, in less than 6 months, we were embedding our technology in the Sony Mobile Xperia mobile phones. So I guess, it's this combination of one good thing that will bring another good thing, and another good thing is going to bring another good thing. So we embed it into the Sony mobile phone. So then we have the Sony logo, right, on our badge. And this brings, credibility. You work really hard to get that contract, and one good contract and choosing carefully who you want to do partnership with, takes you to the next one and the next one. So choosing those partners or getting chosen by means you put your exposure in the right places. So it's all about making the best choices you can every single day. So I we were fortunate, and then the year after, Sony invited us to be at their booth, and slowly you keep on building your business. Then we had a moment that we were exploring the different industries, until I said, this is not working. So that's when, we got into end of 2022, beginning of 2023, and decided to go back just to gaming. So it's just about making choices, understanding if it is the right choice or if it is not. If it's not the right choice, to have the courage to stop it really fast, and learning to say no to opportunities that you might need at the moment, but they can harm you in the long run. So I had a bunch of those, because I study a lot of the Stoic philosophy, and the Stoics says that when you actually say no to something, you're actually saying yes to the right things. So that it's something that I drive myself through quite a lot, to understand if I am making every day the right choices. And some of them I drag them too long, and I knew I was dragging them too long, because sometimes you just don't have the courage to make the right decision, even though you know which one it is. So it's looking back and understanding, a couple of things. Then is being aware of the opportunities, looking for those opportunities to happen, and then assessing if it is the right ones, if you can say yes or if you can say no, and then move forward and making decisions faster and faster and faster every time, you're hitting your next milestone. So, yeah.
Well, Veronica, that's super enlightening to talk to you about Didimo, about your success thus far, the challenges. I think listeners are there's so much from this last hour that I think it's going to help them along with their game development journey. That does mark that you made it through the hour. I want to thank you personally. Hopefully it was fruitful for you as for me. And this is actually the part where I shut up and hand the mic over to you to talk to the people directly about, where they can find Didimo, how they can start incorporating into their pipeline and everything about it.
Oh, thank you. Well, you guys know my name. I'm Veronica. You can find us on, I guess the easiest way will be on our website, which is www.didimo.co, or you can look for me on LinkedIn if you type Veronica Orvalho, Orvalho. I'm sure you'll find a ton of articles as well. And we are delighted to learn from either the AAA, AA games that want to automate or include a full end-to-end production pipeline. And simultaneously, I love to hear from more indie developers, because hopefully, once we nail down all the needs for, AAA games, we can make a version that goes fully automatic for more indie developers, Web3, mobile. That's kind of like our dream long term. So love to get in touch with those that are on that space, and also those that wants to explore user generated content, because I truly believe that at the end of the day, gamers are the ones that are going to be the source for that content in the future. And us developers, we just need to make it easier or easy for them to upload that content and make it unique in each game we're all building. So I loved it here. You can keep in touch. Love to hear what you thought about Didimo and the interview, of course. So
All right.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Veronica. As always, you guys can find all the links in the description below. Other than that, see you guys all next week.